Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Creating a Life You Love with Adriana. And if you're new here, what the main focus of each of these podcast episodes are is to really help us shift our focus to Christ. So if you think about it like a little diagram, you got like working out, you got fitness, you got like journaling, mental health, physical health, all these different categories. But then at the center of it, you have God. And without Him, you don't have that foundation, and everything else is just left to crumble. And from my own experience, anytime I put something else above God, whether it's social media, whether it's friends, a relationship, things just start to go downhill. So that's one of the reasons why I needed to make sure I was really focusing on God, not social media, not the amount of likes I get or views or whatever it may be, but truly just Christ. And then wherever He leads me to go from there, perfect. But we need to shift our focus to Him first, and that's when you're truly going to live a life that you love. But anyway, to get into today's episode, fasting, taking time off social media, and car accidents, all of which have happened in the past few weeks. So, to start with, why did I decide to take some time off of social media? Now, maybe there's something that you have felt you need to do. Maybe the Lord is telling you like, "Hey, I need you to like be obedient to me in this area, or I need you to do this, and I need you to trust me. I need you to trust what I'm going to do." Now, this was me when I was debating whether or not to give up social media. So, at the beginning of the year, I kind of had a dry patch when it came to coming up with ideas, trying to think of things to talk about, whatever it may be for content. I was just not thinking of things. And everything kind of felt like a chore, felt like a burden. And I remember my friend, she described, this feeling to me. When she was working, she goes to school for architecture, and she used to love, her homework, all the projects she had to do, everything. And then all of a sudden, it started to feel like a huge burden. She started to feel really stressed and started to kind of resent her work. And then as time went on, she realized that the Lord was actually allowing her to go through this, through this pain of not wanting to do what she was doing, so that she would realize she was placing her architecture before God. And so she had this moment of repentance when she realized she was placing her achievements and her success and the things that she did above having a relationship with God. And that's why she became so unhappy in what she was doing, because instead of finding joy in Christ and then letting everything else follow, she was trying to find joy in her work alone. And we did a podcast on this a few episodes back, or a few months back. And when she told me this, I had already kind of thought maybe I need to take some time off social media, but I kind of brushed this off a little bit. I was like, no, I don't want to take time off social media. Like, I love, recording these episodes and posting content. So I was like against that idea. Now, sometimes this is how things go in life. The Lord will bring something up through someone or something, and you'll be resistant towards the idea at first. But then it was, let's see, maybe like a month and a half ago, and I kept having like these thoughts come into my head of like, maybe you need to take some time off social media. Maybe you need to take some time off social media. Just all these, thoughts. Now, when I was sitting in silence one day on my lunch break, which whenever I sit in silence, or many times when I sit in silence, I'm not on my phone or reading a book or anything like that, that's when I tend to hear God. But that particular day, I just felt inside of me this voice kind of say, like, you need to take some time off social media. And I was like, "Ugh, okay, I've been feeling this for a while now, and now it's coming up again. So maybe this really is God trying to get a hold of me." Because I think this is another thing when you are, new to having a relationship with God, or even if it's been years, it can be a little bit difficult at times to discern God's voice. And, is that you, God? Is that me? What is that? And so I think the most common theme that I've seen when God is telling me something is that it's consistent. It's consistent over time. It's not like these extremes and then, it just changes. It's like very consistent. So anyway, decided to take time off social media, 1 month, and I was like, okay, Lord. And so I was, dedicated to that. And I wanted to tell you some of the benefits from being off social media. Number one, you can learn to embrace the silence. So during my work break, I would commonly listen to or watch YouTube videos. I would never really scroll on my phone. It would usually just be like YouTube videos. And I replaced that time with simply just sitting in silence and just looking at the trees, looking at the sky, just kind of like admiring these things that you're kind of seeing in a whole new light once you focus. And what I found was I became much more calm, much more peaceful. I could actually enjoy eating my food. And over, a few times this was a little bit difficult to sit in that silence because I think we're so conditioned, even when we're eating, to have something playing in the background or, be on our phones or whatever it may be. But what I found was the more I did this without my phone, the more I wanted to be in the silence and I wanted to just literally stare at a tree. Like I was staring at a tree maybe for 10 minutes, just admiring how God created this. And it was just really cool. Now, I will say, I was talking about this with my friends the other day. Even if you take away everything on your phone, Instagram, YouTube, social media, whatever apps you use, you will still find something to do. You might go on your emails and start going through them. You might go on your camera roll and start going through your camera roll. You might start going on the weather app, And so what I found myself doing was I started to go on Pinterest. I have never used Pinterest ever. And then I started going on there and making like some cute mood boards, which was fine because I don't consider that social media. Maybe it would be defined as that, but I just realized that, okay, I can't go on this so much if I'm taking time off of social media. I'm trying to like embrace being in the silence. So maybe making like mood boards of, my room and my future home would be fun, but we can't do that excessively. So anyway, that was the one downfall that I did need to be mindful of. You'll always find some way to distract yourself. So, really just setting those boundaries of like, okay, I'm not going to go on social media, but I'm also not going to go on every single app on my phone trying to find something to do. So, anyway, that is a warning for that. And so, at the beginning of this time of me taking time off social media, I also felt the Lord telling me to do something else, which was fasting. So, I mentioned this in the last episode where one of my friends, she had a vision of the Lord, telling her something about me. And maybe you're like completely new to this and you're like, what the heck is a vision? Basically, it's like a dream that maybe you have when you are awake. I found the Lord has given me these visions when I'm praying or at the end of a prayer or simply when I'm just like sitting, maybe even about to fall asleep. It's kind of like when I'm in between like going to sleep and being awake where I'll have these visions. Some people completely different. But it's just like a imprintable sharp image in your brain. And anyway, it's very clear that it is from the Lord. It's not just like, oh, I made this scenario up in my mind. Like it's very clear. So anyway, my friend had this vision of me, and in this vision, I was trapped in this cage, and I had to, no one could get me out except myself. It was like something I had to do. And something that I had to do was I had to get this key and unscrew the door. And I had to turn this key 3 times. It was very like significant, the number 3. And so when she told me this, I immediately thought, oh, 3 days of fasting. Now, my boyfriend, he had been talking to me about fasting at this time. And it's really great for your relationship with God. It will help you become closer to Him, help you to hear Him clearer. And I was completely against this idea because I was like, no, I love food way too much. No, I'm not doing that. Never fasting. I didn't say never, but I said, no, not fasting right now. I don't really love that idea. And I was just very resistant to it. But anyway, this thought pops into my mind of, oh, you need to fast for 3 days. Now I kind of push this off because I'm like, no, that's not from God, because he wouldn't want me to do something that I don't want to do. Which, that's kind of funny, because if we look all throughout the Bible, we see that God asked, Jonah to go to Nineveh and tell people about him. And Jonah was like, no, like I'm going to go the other way because I don't really want to do that, because I don't think that they deserve your mercy. So I'm not going to do that. And then the Lord was like, no, like you're going there anyway. And then something amazing, came out of that. But we see that all throughout the Bible. God has us do something we may not feel comfortable doing. And then you have this blessing that comes afterwards. So anyway, I was just resistant to that idea, but I decided to sleep on it and maybe think about it. So I woke up the next day and my friend texts me, the same friend who had the vision. She tells me, I just want to make sure you heard the number 3 in that dream that I told you, or in that vision that I told you. The number 3 is very significant. Maybe it means 3 days of prayer and fasting. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this a confirmation from God? Now, me in my head, I've fasted before for maybe like 12 hours max. So this was not something that I wanted to do. 3 days, like, no, thank you. So I was like, okay, God, I'm going to fast for a day. So I did it for a day, right? And I felt really close to the Lord. I felt great, but I didn't feel the peace that she described that I would feel in this vision. So a few weeks go by and I decide, you know what? I'm going to fast again. But this time I'm going to fast for 36 hours, not 24 hours, 36 hours. So that's what I did. And guess what? Nothing happened. I felt the exact same. Yeah, I felt the Lord, his presence stronger. And when I say fasting, I mean abstaining from food and just drinking water. So, water with, salt. And there can be different types of fast. I feel that, wherever you are in your journey, if you've never fasted before, maybe you do a liquids fast where you do like smoothies and soups. But anyway, so going back to this. So I decide a few weeks later, okay, I'm going to, fast for a day again, 36 hours, and nothing happened. Now, a few weeks go by and it is, I think the 7th of April, I believe. I'm not sure on the exact date. Let me see in my journal. This is why it's so important to journal, because you can see all the, milestones or all the things you did. Anyway, so let me see. Oh, yeah, April 4th. So I started. So then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. And now during this time, I kept asking for confirmation from the Lord. I kept asking, Lord, like, please just confirm if I need to fast. Like, I know I need to fast, but confirm how long this needs to be. And fasting is seen all throughout the Bible. We see that the disciples did it. We see in the Old Testament. And it's the whole premise of it is you're giving up something that you really enjoy. You're sacrificing it for God. And although this may sound unenjoyable, which it can be, there can be so many blessings and just fruitfulness that can come out of it. Until I fasted, I didn't realize how much I thought about food. Like, I think about what my next meal is going to be, what I'm going to have for dinner. Like, it's always in my mind because food is amazing and God gave food for us, to enjoy. But anyway, so we finally get to April 4th. I decide to do a 3-day water fast. Now, I was getting a little bit hangry just the first day. And also something about fasting, it brings up the character flaws inside of you that you may not have known otherwise. So I realized that I can be very defensive. I can get agitated easily, and it just isn't just isn't great. Now, the first day I did my fast, I was at work, and something that is interesting is I always used to make the excuse of like, oh, I have low blood sugar, so that's why I get like irritated easily if like I miss a meal or something. So like that's why you just have to like deal with it. Someone called me out for this. And said, well, how come when a patient comes in and maybe you haven't eaten, you can be nice to the patient, but you have a tone with your friends or people who are close to you? And I was like, yeah, That's true. So the first day I fasted, I really noticed this. I could be very gentle, very calm with patience, where I work. But then when my parents like asked me a question or like anything like that, I would get so easily irritated. So then it was like, okay, I'm going to bring this to the Lord. I'm going to pray on this. I'm going to see, why am I getting irritated with this? Like, what is bothering me? Because obviously I have the ability to be gentle. I have the ability to be calm, even if I haven't eaten all day. So what I was doing was I was having bone broth 2 to 3 times a day, just like a cup of it. So I was still feeling the effects of the fast immensely, but it was something like warm and nice to kind of keep me like a little bit more, have a little bit more electrolytes from the sodium. And anyway, yeah, but then I was also drinking water. Now we get to the second day. I had a little bit of difficulties. I was a little bit, I had a little bit of a tone with my boyfriend, and we talked about that, right? And now on the third day, I had a pretty in depth, um, difficult at times conversation with my boyfriend, and just working through things that have come up from our past, and like trying to heal and work through those things. But that third day of the fast, I was kind of angry at God. And actually the first 2 days I was a little bit angry, and I was angry because I was like, God, why do you want me to go through this much suffering and pain? And I wasn't just talking about the fast, but I was also talking about pain in my physical body. I had been dealing with pain in my body for, 3 years, and still am, but, joint pain, muscle pain, fatigue, just all these different things. And I'm like, God, like, why? And I was just kind of angry. And so that night, it kind of brought me to my knees of like repenting for that. And so I repented of this. There were a lot of tears, and it was just very emotional. I went to sleep that night, got like 2 hours of sleep. I was waking up, my heart was racing. I felt like I was sinking into my bed, and I was just crying out to God. I was like, God, please, like, I don't understand why this is happening. And there was just a lot of like past just hurt and anxiety that was causing anxiety in my current relationship. And anyway, I was just praying to the Lord all that day, seeking wise counsel from my friends on how to like get through this and get through these anxious thoughts about, the future, about the past. Um, and then and then later that night, it's now Sunday. I started the fast Thursday, did it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now it's Sunday morning and I get to break my fast. Now it's Sunday morning. I broke my fast. I'm in prayer all day because I'm still having this anxiousness. Now at night, it's Sunday at night, I see my boyfriend, and we have this immense just peace from the Lord. And I've never felt this. Like, it was true just peace about the fears that I had, about, the things that I was angry at God for. Like, it was just peace that He's going to heal. He's going to heal our past wounds, the things that we've struggled with. Like, He's going to heal that, and we don't have to live in that fear. And it's crazy because you think about it, and I had, just like my friend's vision was, I had to do something. I had to, take action in order to show God that I'm going to be obedient to you, even though I don't know what the outcome is. I'm still going to be obedient to you. And this is something that I really wanted to like make, like just touch on, or really make the whole point of this episode of like obedience to God and like staying faithful to Him, even when it doesn't make any sense, even when I didn't understand how a 3-day fast could do anything in my life. I just didn't understand it. But then the Lord gave me this peace on the third day, the fourth day, after I fasted for 3 days. And since then, it's been a few weeks, and the things that I once struggled with before this fast, I don't. And if a thought comes up, if an anxiety comes up, I just give it to the Lord. Now, there's always going to be new things probably that will come up. And I've noticed, more things that I'm having to work through. But this main thing that was giving me so much anxiety about just like things that I have been conditioned to believe from prior relationship, that giving me a lot of anxiety in this current relationship, like that has been just resolved, right? And it all came from being obedient to the Lord. Now, it tends to be when you're most on fire for the Lord, when you're so joyful, that the enemy tries to test you and he tries to attack and be like, hey, I'm going to test you right now. Let's see if you really remain loyal to the Lord after he just gave you this peace. So that week or 2 weeks after that, I was going to visit my friend in college at Miami, and my other friend went with me. We were driving home that night from Miami, and it was about 12 o'clock at night. We kind of stayed there a little bit late, but you know how that is with getting into deep conversations late at night. But anyway, we were driving home. It was 11:57, and I was just talking to my friend and telling her, like, you know what? It's so cool how the Lord works. Like, we really have no clue what's going to happen. Like, I didn't think I was going to be back in this, relationship, and I never imagined it could be this amazing. And if you asked me 6 months ago, I would have never thought that. And just amazing how the Lord works in just a second, and how you never really know what's going to happen, right? You never know what's going to happen in life. And a few minutes later go by, and I we're almost home. We're like 15 minutes away. And I'm like, oh, we're almost there. All of a sudden, we feel this jolt in the car. All of a sudden, I feel my car tilt to one side. I hear screeching, it's loud, and I'm like, oh no, I can't drive. Something happened to my tire. I ran over something and something happened to my tire. So I'm like pulling over to the side of the road. Thank goodness, I don't know how I didn't hit any cars. The Lord definitely just put a protective bubble around us. And we skidded over to the side. We're like, oh my gosh, like what happened to the car? So my tire is just completely, popped out. The rim just fell off. My car underneath the undercarriage is like leaking this fluid. It's just very bad. So we jump out of the car. We're like, oh my gosh, like, what do we do? She grabs her dog, and we're on the side of the road, and we see 3 other cars on the side of the road as well. It turns out we hit a tire. So it's 12 o'clock at night. I'm trying to call my parents, my boyfriend. Like, no one's answering. Okay. No one's answering because it's 12 o'clock. And she calls her husband, and he's up, and he, comes and gets us, and, we call the police and everything, and a tow truck because I could not drive my car off. Now, in these moments, it can be really easy to be like, hey, God, why'd you like what could you have prevented that from happening? You know? And we never know why things happen in our life, but it doesn't help you to kind of turn your back on God and be like, well, you made this happen, so I'm going to reject you. It doesn't help at all. So in that moment, I was like, you know what? We are safe. Like, nothing has harmed us. And my car could have toppled over and it didn't. So who cares about a car that, is damaged? Now, in this moment, I was like, okay, I'm probably going to get my car back, like, sometime, like, it'll be fine. Um, Anyway, so it's like 12 o'clock at this point. We wait for the tow truck. It gets to be like 2 in the morning. And finally, I get to go home. And I'll admit, for a moment, I was a little bit upset. I was like, God, like, why'd you have to let this happen, And I even wrote a poem about it. I wrote a poem about how my car, hit this tire in the middle of the road, and 3 other cars also hit the same tire. So, like, it wasn't even my fault. And my car is now damaged. But anyway, so a week later, turns out my car is totaled. Have to get a new car. And in the past, I would have been really mad about this. I would have been so upset. But the Lord has given me this peace and this joy that no matter what happens, even if for a moment I'm a little bit frustrated, I will come back and be like, okay, I am going to be thankful in all things. And I forget, I think it says that in Philippians, give thanks to God in all things. So in every circumstance, give thanks to God. And now it's been really interesting just seeing how, the Lord gave me this peace, and then I've had these like trials and different things come about in my life that have made things very difficult or inconvenient, but it's really been an opportunity to like grow my faith. Like this whole car situation, it's been an opportunity to be like, you know what? These material things, they don't have value in the eternal world. So why should they have value to me here? And it's been a very cool reframing in my mind. So all of this to say, this is what's been happening the past month. And the one lesson I have learned is to have faith and remain faithful to the Lord through it all. Have faith, meaning whether you're waiting for healing or, something to happen to in your life or a job or something specific, have faith that even if it doesn't turn out the way you wanted, the Lord can work all things together for his good. And then another thing, remain faithful. Yes, have faith in the Lord, but I think we like to skip out on the part where it says remain faithful. Remaining faithful doesn't just mean going to church when things get hard, opening up your Bible and reading the Bible even when you don't particularly want to. It can mean that, but it also means doing what he tells you to do even when it's difficult. Doing what he tells you to do when you need to have that hard conversation or you need to, let a friend, just kind of leave out of your life instead of holding on to that. Um, Remaining faithful can mean giving thanks even when your car just is totaled and you don't have a car to drive for a little bit. Yeah, giving thanks in all things and just remaining faithful to him, and then you'll see these blessings. And so whatever it is that you're, wondering, maybe is this the Lord telling me? I don't know. Keep praying about it. Keep just spending time with him in his word, in prayer, in silence, and figure out, what is it that you need to do? And he won't give you the whole plan for your entire life because then what would life be? Kind of boring. But he will point you to where you need to be. He'll show you, open these doors, close these doors. And through all of that, if you remain obedient to him and remain faithful and do the things he's asking of you, you will see such fruit in your life, even in the difficult times. So, anyway, that's what's been happening in the past month in my life. And I hope this can provide some encouragement to you, maybe just encouragement to stay faithful and be obedient to him, even when times get difficult. It does not do you any good to turn your back on him, especially in difficult times. So, with that, if you enjoyed today's episode, remember to subscribe, follow the podcast, and give it a like if you're on YouTube, or rate it if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening on. Yeah, but with that being said, I thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you can remember this week, what can you do to remain faithful to the Lord, have faith, and just stay obedient to him, because once we do that, that is when we will truly create a life that we love.